No, it's all good. I was in Phoenix back in the early 2000s and caught a Suns game, and that gorilla shot a shirt up at me through a thing. I thought I won the lottery. I was like, oh my God, this gorilla that I've seen my whole life shot a t-shirt at me, and I caught it. So it was pretty cool.
That
Yeah.
I could definitely enjoy.
Yes. It was cool. Well, hey, I'm coming from Kansas City, Missouri, in the middle of the map, so it's great to meet you. And I want to begin our conversation with what we lived through for the last 3.5 years, which was the pandemic. And I'm
Yeah.
wondering how you got through it and how it changed you now that we're kind of in this quote unquote post-pandemic era.
It's interesting. And so when we really didn't know, it affected me in so many ways, honestly. And so I was in my last company, which I now sold. But we had a fire at the beginning of that year that burned down one of our locations, and it caused like so much damage because we had like an account with a major new vehicle manufacturer, and that closed down that operation because of the fire. On top of that, they ended up robbing that facility. We warehoused a bunch of parts there, so we got robbed twice, and then later on we had a work van stolen. Ended up getting a failure to garnish lawsuit while I was in Peru for my MBA program. Get back, and turns out like we had a guy that didn't even work for us, but the court filed the paperwork wrong. Lost lawsuit for $75,000. I don't know if you know this rule, but if you have a garnishment placed on your business and you don't garnish that person, now that debt goes on to you. Problem was, this guy didn't even work for me, and the court filed the paperwork wrong, and it was obviously the court's fault. They said I no-showed to court. I didn't. I had filed a petition on it. But long story short, we lost $75,000. I had to pay my lawyer $5,000, and so all this is going on, and that's like the couple things, and then COVID hits, right? And we're all confused, on what's going on. And my undergrad's in biochemistry. And so I'm trying to understand this on that level and like make the right decisions for my company. And do we stay open? Do we close? That sort of stuff. I'm on a subset of the city council. I was talking to them. I'm like, hey, do we close? Do we stay open? Well, one of the things we do is body work. And so we had people's essential vehicles. So they told us to stay open. But navigating that was really tough. And then at that same time, have you ever heard of SEMA? It's
Yeah.
an automotive organization. Okay.
Yeah.
So SEMA asked me to be on this huge panel. Like I was completely honored. Like some of the biggest CEOs in the industry, I was like, and then they chose, me as well. And so I'm on there, and I have to go on right when nobody knows what's going on with COVID. What do we do as, businesses? Do we close? That sort of stuff. And I was like stressed. I'm like, what if we go on and we say we're still open? Is everybody going to hate us? Are they never going to come and see us again? That sort of stuff. And so it was really tough on that level. So that was the business side for me, at least. Personally, I saw some things that I actually kind of loved, like I saw some people that were being actually, for some reason, it seemed like people were being a little nicer to each other for a little while. I heard that the shelter for the first time ever was completely emptied out because people were adopting animals. I hope that didn't have outrageous impacts now, because I hope they didn't give them back or something. But heartwarming to know that we're like adopting dogs and cats and animals. I loved to hear that. So I saw some of those things that I think were a positive thing out of it. But now we don't. I think we plan a little bit differently in business and life because we never know what's going to disrupt us, right? We never expected something like that to happen.
Yeah, yeah, it was pretty intense. So let's get to the heart and soul of you as an entrepreneurial alchemist. And I want to know, if I put you in front of a bunch of third graders, it's career day, and one of the kids looks up and says, hey, what do you do for a living? How do you answer that child?
So I've been in this situation before.
Okay.
Yeah, I get asked to speak sometimes. I'm actually preparing a speech for a high school right now in Kansas. So
Okay.
I'll be out in Kansas next Tuesday. And so it's interesting because you try to make it fascinating.
Right.
I find what's cool about entrepreneurship is you get to solve problems that you love to solve, right? And I think that's the best thing about it. And I kind of try to tell kids that, and then you get to I don't tell them you get to be your own boss, because I don't know that that's necessarily true. It's like when you're in business, you got a lot of bosses, even if you have zero investors. So trying to get to that level, but I think mostly to the kids, I tell them, it's like you can do anything you want. And entrepreneurship is the key to that. You can change your stars completely through entrepreneurship, and you get to solve problems that you really desire to solve, and like on a like maybe a more graduated level. I don't tell the kids this, but I tell people all the time, don't start a business you love, start a business you hate, right?
Yeah.
find something you absolutely hate and find a way to solve that problem. And that's your business. That's a business of passion, and a business of passion, you'll never quit.
Yeah, that's great. Great advice. So, what did you want to be in the third grade? What did you want to grow up and become?
That's such a good question. And unfortunately, I've asked my parents this question because I'd love to know the answer, but my parents were a little aloof, so they have no answer. The first time I remember wanting anything, I wanted to be a helicopter pilot.
Mm.
That's the first, job. I was raised kind of like in interesting circumstances, so I didn't hope that much as a kid. I think I was like, besides the helicopter pilot thing, I thought was pretty lofty. I just was pretty practical. I wanted to have a job that got me food and clothes, and so that originally was like I had a very low. That you have those entrepreneurs that are like, I knew my whole life I
Yeah.
wanted to be an entrepreneur. I sold candy bars. I did this. That wasn't my station. I thought that entrepreneurship was for somebody with a rich dad. It's like I didn't know it could be achievable for anybody. And actually, that's the crux of what I work on these days. Is I want to make entrepreneurship more achievable, and it's mostly here that it's
Yeah.
not. So I work there a lot, lowering the imaginary red tape, we call it, because that's actually the easy side of business. The stuff that we're afraid of to get into business, that's the easy part. The hard part is the work.
Yeah. So, who's been a hero for you? Who's been kind of a fuel or an inspiration for who you are today?
You go through life's evolutions and you have different heroes, right? And recently I got to meet my outstanding hero that I've, kind of like meeting my Michael Jordan. I have been watching this man for about 5 years. I really believe in the power of looking at the right time of heroes, especially as I age, and that definition becomes a little bit different. I started watching this documentary on Mexico and how these kids were idolizing these gangbangers, basically, right? Writing songs about them, that sort of stuff. And I'm like, man, if we're looking at those guys as heroes, what do the kids grow up to be, right? And so we kind of set out to like redefine what a hero is and what we look at. So in about a year ago now, we went and filmed in Cambodia. We have a new docuseries called Redefining Heroes. And we seek out these people throughout the world. Happened to be, I somehow got my hero to agree to doing the first episode. And he's this man who was a high school dropout. He started running a projection camera in a movie house. Somehow that became president of Fox Films, and he did Titanic and Braveheart and a bunch of other huge X-Men. And he goes over to Cambodia. He sees all these kids living in this trash dump and literally getting run over by the trucks. Horribleness. I don't want to downplay or put your show in the dirt today, but really awful things. And so he gave up everything: the mansions, the Hollywood girlfriend, the cars, and he moved over there. Now he's 18 years into it. He's got 1,700 kids. I've been there. I met the guy firsthand. He is the most amazing individual I've ever met in my life. My expectation was here. He's here. So I guess to answer your question, that's my hero at this point, is people like him that are out there doing this amazing work. It's one thing to be given a lot in life. He earned all this, came from nothing, and he gave it, and he gave it. And he tells you, I am the most blessed man in the world. Every night he walks through this trash heap, basically, and talks to the kids, takes photos of the kids, because otherwise they'll never have any photos of when they were children. He gives them the photos, and he makes sure they're fed. He makes sure that like everything's going okay. He chases the drug dealers out of the neighborhood, that sort of stuff. It's like amazing.
Yeah, and he obviously has a tremendous amount of inspiration and motivation. What is that for you? What is it every day that gets you out of bed and makes you who you are and makes you accomplish what you want to get done?
Yeah, I hate to say it this way, but part of it's probably anger. I've got a chip on my shoulder a little bit, and some of that's childhood and the way that I was treated. Some of it's like I can't stand to see somebody else mistreated. And I spend a lot of time looking at systems that I don't think are fair. I dare say this on the show, but I think it's so important. And I'm like a little bit afraid because I've had to like confirm this 3 times and it's been confirmed for me. But I was told recently that when we don't have kids anywhere to go for them, they're actually going to the correctional centers for youth. Like it's unheard of to me. It's like we're literally sending kids with nowhere to go to the penitentiary to be with other kids, that are bad. It's like that something has to change with that. So I think my underlying desires these days for success is I want to change things that I'm passionate about. When I see something that hurts on a different level, like I want the ability to change something like that. And, you know, one of the ways to do it is like what I'm talking to you right now. I feared this so much. You know, we were offered 4 reality shows in my first business. I turned them all down because I was so afraid of the camera. But then I realized what a tool it could be to change things. You know, we have a whole Content for Good initiative where we use this as a tool to try to raise funds, try to educate, raise awareness. We have a show on bullying. We have a show on underdogs. We have the one I talked to you about, redefining heroes. So I guess every day I wake up and I want to find a way to change even a little thing in the world.
So speaking of change and making a positive influence on people, what's been your best success story? One that always puts a smile on your face that you've been involved with?
You know, I get to experience that so often these days. And I work in the micro just as much as, you know, on a big level. And so I've helped a lot of entrepreneurs with their businesses. A lot of them are about to lose them. You know, I've done a lot of pro bono consulting. I've started people out and new in business and helped them a lot. We have a schedule here at our facility where you can book in anytime and I'll talk to you about your business, your accounting, you know, anything else. I usually meet with about 10 people a week we open up for. And so there's so many success stories, you know, and like later on, I'll get calls or feedback from somebody, Tyler, you changed the life of my business. You changed my life. Or even riding in, you know, an Uber quite often, I'll get to talking to somebody and they're like, you know what? I completely switched my life. I'm thinking about doing this now. Thank you so much. You know, it's like, working in the micro, you know, is amazing to me. I get told almost daily that I've had some impact on their life just by something I've said. And the only reason I have anything to say is because I've probably been right where they're at.
Yeah. So let's say you have a dream tonight. You run into a 20-year-old version of yourself. You can give that young version of you a piece of advice based on the wisdom you've gained in your life. What advice would you give your younger self?
Oh boy. Yeah, I'm the one of those guys that wishes they had the time machine. I'm such a perfectionist. Any mistake I've made in life, you know, I realize they brought me here today, you know, but at the same time, I would go back and I would do everything absolutely perfect. You know, I'd have a perfect life, perfect track record, but we don't do that. You know, I was kind of an idiot kid. I made mistakes, you know, and so I would go back and I would tell that kid, I would say, life is a journey and you can choose the journey if you choose the mission. You can't choose everything that's going to happen on that journey, but you can choose where the destination is. And then the other thing I would say is that mission is going to need an avatar. And that's another thing you choose. You choose how to build that avatar for the mission that you need to go on. And you choose like to make that person strong, to make that person smart, your own life, right? Just like a video game. You know, and then that way that person can accomplish any journey. If I would have started thinking like this in my 20s, you know, like, Tyler, you're an avatar, just like a video game. Get stronger, get faster, get smarter, anything you can do, you know, to make that character better. And then if you can, and this is the hardest thing to do in your youth, choose a mission. I mean, the people that can choose their missions early, you know, choose a mission or just work on your character, one of the two, because choosing the mission is the hardest part. But the people that choose their mission early, Arnold Schwarzenegger, you know, Dolly Parton, Beckham, you know, all these people that have done like the outrageous, they usually knew what they wanted to be at 3. That's not all of us, right? So until you find your mission, build the character, because then the character can get you to the mission of choosing.
So one of the things about the American tapestry is that an entrepreneur, the entrepreneurial story is very ingrained in what we do. There's so many successes in capitalism and otherwise. Um, but what's your favorite success story as far as an entrepreneur is concerned? What's one that you think about that you might emulate or think is pretty impressive?
You know, you can only pick and choose. And even from me, you know, it's like there's some things that you can learn from me and there's some things you shouldn't learn from me. And you know, one of the greatest success stories of all times is Steve Jobs. You know, he was a guy who was raised, do you know his story very well?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So I mean, maybe for the audience, I'll kind of reiterate it a little bit, but you know, it's he was raised by foster parents and basically then worked with his buddy and literally started from the ground up. You know, he was first sale of computers. He's the greatest success story ever.
yeah.
From nothing, he's a true self-made man, right? There was nobody that really gave him anything, and they made it. The other side of the coin on Steve Jobs is, I'm sorry, he was an awful human being. I have no desire to be like Steve Jobs in the least bit on a personal level. Business level, I can admire him for a lot of different ways. He has some of my favorite things in the world that he said. Business is a rule of attrition. Completely agree with that. You just got to stay in it. You know, I love his connecting the dots speech that he gave at Stanford, how life is like seemingly random and then it all comes together in a defining moment. Love that. But didn't take care of his daughter, didn't desire to do anything for the world or for charity, was mean to his employees, screwed them over when he sold the company, even poor Woz, sorry, I'm digressing a little bit.
Right.
Greatest success story ever. You can't take every page in his book.
Yeah. Yeah. So in our lives of inspiration, art plays a big part of that, art and literature. What was a book? What was the music, the art? What were some of the things that inspired you?
I mean, daily I'm inspired by artists like Lindsey Sterling. Have you ever heard her
Yeah.
music?
Yeah.
I they call it MIMMA, Jim Tyler's epic music. I throw that on, puts me in another world, like I love training to that music. So, and that's been imperative to anything I've done in life, is that stress relief. But the major book that's changed my life is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. I would say to anybody, if you're like a little bit lost on life, but you have this slight idea of what you want to do, put that lens on, read that book, and find out if it falls into the framework that Victor talks about. Because I think life should be about a mission. Life gets so much more fulfilling if we're after something. And that could be the monetization of your business, or that could be changing something you're passionate about, or that could be having an amazing family and being a great father. It just depends on what your mission is.
So Tyler, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, colleagues, everyone around you, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I'm just a normal dude. I'm a normal dude that maybe thinks a little abnormally at times, and so I didn't always believe in myself, but now I believe that anything's possible. But I think anybody can. I think you can mold this little gumdrop you got in your head, and I think you can make it do anything you want to do. So I embrace the things that some people don't know how to embrace yet. I embrace pain. I embrace misfortune. I say that those are part of my story. My book editor recently told me that I am the ultimate in reframing things. I can make things in life that suck seem like it was a good thing, right? And so I think if there's anything that I do, kind of well, it's that. But other than that, I'm like, one of my hardest things about managing businesses is I love my people. I want to be on that level with them all the time. I want to be out there in the mud with them, and that's the hardest thing as a business owner, as your business grows, is there's a point when, I remember my office manager yelled at me one day when we bought this brand new paint booth, and I wanted to be out there building the paint booth with the guys. I loved doing that. I love working with my people doing labor work. That's my favorite thing. But she's like, Tyler, get off that roof. You got a bunch of stuff to do. You're the CEO of this company. It's like, so I think that's one of the hardest transition is like, as your business grows, you really do have to work on it. I think it's important to get with your people and show them you're not afraid to work hard. I mean, till the last day of my last company, I was one of the people that scrubbed the bathroom, and it did an interesting thing to our culture. They'd all try to, I had guys that made over 6 figures. I'd pay them to clean the bathroom. It's like they would try to race me into the bathroom and do a better job than me on it. It develops an interesting culture, and we would have new people come in and they'd say, the manager would tell them, hey, you should sweep the floor in your area. And they'd be like, no, I'm the manager of this department. I'm not going to sweep the floor. And they would say, well, if the boss of the company will clean the bathroom, you're not too good to sweep the floor. Yeah. So I would say, as an owner, I always think I'm never too good to do anything. I'll be the first one out there giving myself the crappiest job, and or helping you with it, one of the two.
What's the best advice you've ever gotten?
Great question. Great question. I'm going to have to default this very moment into Viktor Frankl's book. It's like life should be a mission. Like if life is about collecting a bunch of stuff and putting it on your mantle, and like showing off your car. And this is from a guy that was in a first world business for a long time, built fancy cars, couple $100,000 cars. But if that is life, and don't get me wrong, if you've worked hard, you can have those things, absolutely. But if that's what life's about, I don't want any part of it. Like this, I don't want part of a monopoly game. And so if life isn't about if you're not happy, try to do your best to make other people's ride a little bit easier. And you might actually find happiness while you're doing it.
Yeah. So of all the things that you've done, seen, accomplished, and overcome, what are you the proudest of?
Never giving up. There is no quit in me. The things I told you a slight story, and everybody told me to write a book because I hate to chop it up to bad luck, but I had, a lot of things happen to me that doesn't happen to a normal, business or guy or, and it like all came at once. And no matter how many things that came at me, I don't quit, and I'm proud of that. It's like, and there's a lot of times where you feel like you want to ring the bell, but I get up every day, no matter what's going on. I make sure to get my workout in, no matter what's going on. I made sure to show up with a smile to my business, no matter what's going on. I don't quit. There's no quit in me whatsoever, and I'm proud of that.
So Tyler, if anyone wants to dive into your world, learn more about you, reach out, anything about your world, where can they go?
Yeah, I think the best way to get me these days is on my Instagram at Tyler Uriah. And you can also look up my podcast, which is Bully This, A Hero's Journey. And we also have underdogpodcast.com that's launching soon. And yeah, I like anytime I can help you with business questions, anything else, I make myself very accessible for that.
Wonderful. Tyler, you're a force of nature, man. Thank you so much for your time and for your raw wisdom and energy. I appreciate it, man.
Absolutely great questions. I'm so honored to be here. Thank you so much for having me on.
Me as well. Thank you, sir. Have a great day.
All right. You too.